This game pisses me off every single day. From the blatant monetization of just pay to win. I mean, this is a little ridiculous. A free pass, a premium pass, and a cosmetic pass just means paid to win with better rewards, right? I mean, not to mention this. This is a little bit ridiculous. I mean, how many bundles do we genuinely need? Game passes. There's not that many. There's a bunch of currency, a bunch of stuff, right? But the content of this game is just slowly dying out. This dev team is amazing. They are very transparent with everything that goes on, and they even put out how much they pay everyone. And they told everyone, like, hey, unfortunately, the game costs money to keep running. People have salaries that they need to make, and they have livings they need to pay, right? And they have to make money, and I understand that, right? Obviously, games have to monetize because what happened is the player count has significantly dropped, which means their earnings have dropped, which means they need to monetize more. If they had the concurrent 100,000 players they used to have, they would still be. There was barely any monetization. There weren't event passes. There weren't a bunch of different game modes. It was simple. I think the only way that this game is going to survive is if they just restart. You know, give everyone who played this game, like find a way to reward them in the next game, right? Maybe have like an index, like based on your index completion, you get different titles, right? If you did like 99% of everything in the game, you get a nice title and a reward in the next game that they make. But I think this game genuinely has run its course, and I think we're just beating a dead horse. I think that there's no point in new units since every unit in this game, they're just in a competition to just beat the previous unit, and I feel like AV strayed from what it originally set out to do, which was be different than what existed previously. AA and ASTD all had one simple thing, which was every unit before it was way too strong compared to the updates that came before it, right? Every update, the last units became boring, not useful, and then if you didn't have unique on them, they were pointless. I feel like AV had a really good concept that they had going, right? Hey, we're going to introduce some new units. They're going to be great for their game mode. They're going to have some cool passives, some interesting ways to play with them. They're going to counter something that we're going to create a new effect, and they might be good for other modes. But now they don't, right? Because all of the dedicated PvP units are banned in PvP. Like, they don't have their passes, right? Which people are like, oh, you're going to have to waste bans on them. Just add more bans instead of just making some units mandatory bans. Passives, I think, genuinely have gotten too complicated, right? I really don't understand why they need to be this complicated. I feel like all you could do is, instead of all this shit, just say, hey, it inflicts an effect. That effect does this. Done. Instead of just interesting ways to just say more damage. Like, I would rather you write a passive that just says it has a 1 and 2 to do double damage. Or, better yet, just up the damage, like 50%. And that way it would be the same thing. I don't understand what's all the chance. I do like when they do play around with some mechanics that didn't exist before, like Farukia, based on the previous element that attacks. You get cool things. But I do think it all went downhill whenever they started giving absolutely everything immune to status effects and debuffs. Status effects and debuffs are what make a tower defense game difficult, right? Or banning elements makes them difficult, right? When all you have in the game is just you add a unit that does a ton of damage, you make it immune to everything, and it has zero drawbacks or flaws, then there's no reason to use anything else until the game's difficulty catches up to the game, right? This game has a criminal problem that difficulty does not catch up to units at all, right? Some of the first stages in this game are not even close to what currently exists. And only in the specialty modes is it slightly different. All story stages can be beaten with a banner unit. All boss events can be pretty much solo. If someone just happens to get lucky and get Sukuna versus Gojo, which they kind of make it really easy, all you have to do is just AFK in the summary event and you're going to get it. Then you kind of can beat anything. And then when you can beat every mode with your current unit, right, you can skip to that end game progression. There's no point in getting any other units. There's no point. Once you already have the best 6 units, they can pretty much solo every mode. And back then, when they added units like this, they gave them drawbacks. Escanor was overpowered when he came out. Kaguya was game breaking when she came out. I believe she was the 3rd Vanguard, and she was insane because she could teleport. She could go, and she had a map-wide nuke. She had 0 drawbacks, and she was instantly like outclassed by the next update, right? And then they just keep adding more overpowered shit, right? Like Madara, you place him down, he's max level. He can solo anything as long as you get enough money to place him. Escanor was kind of the farming unit, aka if you got rid of every other unit and you brought him, he would upgrade every wave. His main drawback, he couldn't break shields, which a lot of maps had shields, and that instantly defeated him. So that meant he could beat a lot of things as long as they didn't have shields. So all they had to do was add 1 or 2 units that had shield, like give them 20 shields, which for a multi-hit unit, that would be easy. But for like Escanor, that would instantly break him out of the meta and he wouldn't work, right? That's a very easy way. You give them 1 main drawback, and then whatever stage you don't want that to be the best unit for, you just add their drawback, right? If this unit only spawns in summons, you just make the boss immune to summons. And that way, there is a reason to get other stuff. This guy, he has a ton of shinies. What the fuck? Anyway. But no, what did they do? They basically just put, immune to everything. Nullifies, immune to status effects and debuffs. It's, and then Gojo versus Sukuna is just the best unit. And it's just gotten out of hand. Right? I haven't played the past couple updates because there's no point. They keep adding new stages, but don't really add a reason to play them. Right? And I get it, because, like, if you add a stage to get a unit so that you now have the strongest unit, but then there's nothing else to do with that unit, there's no point, right? For example, I have to grind for the new units so I can beat the Rift. But once I get Maharaga from the Rift, there's nothing left for me to farm Maharaga with, right? If there's no progression timeline, like, hey, farm for this unit so you can beat this, it makes it easier, but it's not impossible, right? I genuinely think the only way to survive or to keep this game going is to just restart, right? Take what they know about what works, what doesn't, what was their good updates, what was fun, what the community liked, and just restart. Get rid of the trait system, come up with something unique, right? I wouldn't mind the Memoria system coming back. Like, obviously, there has to be some sort of luck system in place, because otherwise, leaderboards and competitive game modes, you will have no differences between the top players and the bottom players. You need to have something that sets people apart, even by fractional differences. It just needs to be something, right? May it be a unit that's slightly different, like Expeditions does it with the unit equipment, having rolling percentages. They also do have traits, but if everyone has the best trait, then it, doesn't matter. I am noticing that game is kind of on the path to fall off. I don't think it will as soon, but they're all following the same format. I mean, people just want to start over. Expeditions is not any better than Vanguards. Granted, the game and the UI and everything does feel a lot smoother. It feels a lot more optimized because there's just less effects, less server side shit going on. I mean, here there's a lot of server side stuff that goes on. It's a little insane, but I mean, anyway, because these developers are really talented. They do a really good job at what they do, right? All the models, they look cool, even despite them having to be DMCA's. They come up with really cool ideas. The passives are really cool systems. I just feel like that the units are so much better than the stages that it doesn't matter. And as soon as they went into the immune to everything, then there's no point in grinding for anything. I think if they want to revert it, delete everyone's passive who has some sort of immune to everything, which instantly would change a lot of things. Two, every unit that had that, just give them the element of unknown, which is the same thing, right? This is immune to status effects and debuffs, but for certain stages, ban unknown elements. Ban certain elements, right? Make it to where you can't use certain things for certain stages. That way, the same team does not universally solo everything, right? And change it every day, right? Just for every mode, it cycles, right? That way, obviously it's going to make it harder to macro and whatnot, but I don't really care. I've macroed this game plenty of times. It kind of is boring. But even if they end up doing that, they'll probably add a new unit that's immune to that. They're an elementless unit. They can be played on everything, and it's just once you go down that rabbit hole of just making a Mary Jane unit, there's literally no point. And if you don't know what that is, it's a character in fiction that never has to try. They're the best from the start, and they don't really have to do anything. Right? I feel like they just stopped making units with drawbacks. It's just like a dick measuring contest of just who can just make the most overpowered shit. You know? I don't know what changed between when this game first came out and now, but I feel like it is slowly losing its charm. I hope the developers can take the time to come up, because I don't think it would be as difficult to just restart, since the UI exists, the unit mechanics, all these systems exist, and they even built from the ground up a custom system for anyone to build their own unit, right? I don't feel like it'd be hard to start over, since all of the framework is there. All you need to do is map build, maybe some custom, it'd just be a lot of modeling and UI and artwork. A lot of the systems and coding has already been done. And if you make a unit that is, the same as a previous unit, just copy the framework, you know. Anyway, this has just been a yap session.